The fragrance of Pierre de Ronsard roses usually fills me with a sense of peace, but today, standing in the center of the rose garden estate, the scent feels like a funeral shroud. I am draped in 30 pounds of hand-stitched silk and French lace, a custom Vera Wang masterpiece that was supposed to symbolize the beginning of my happily ever after with Ji Yang. The garden is silent, save for the rhythmic clicking of my own heels on the marble path. The guests haven't arrived. The caterers are missing. The only thing present is the suffocating heat of a midsummer afternoon and the glowing screen of my phone, which has just become a window into my own execution. I look down at the viral livestream link sent by an anonymous account. The title reads, "The Wedding of the Century, Ji Yang and His True Muse." I click it. The screen explodes with light and cheers. There he is, Ji Yang, my fiancé of 3 years. The man who told me this morning that he was delayed by an emergency board meeting, he isn't in a boardroom, he is standing at the altar of the Grand Cathedral across the city, his eyes brimming with a tenderness I haven't seen in months. Beside him, clutching a bouquet of white lilies, is Lin Xia, my stepsister, the fragile, innocent girl my father brought into our home 10 years ago, the one who always claimed she wanted nothing more than my hand-me-downs. Well, today, she took the ultimate hand-me-down, my husband-to-be. I, Ji Yang, take you, Lin Xia, to be my wedded wife. His voice, amplified by the cathedral speakers, sounds steady, iconic, heartless. I don't scream, I don't collapse, I feel a strange, crystalline coldness spreading through my veins, as if my blood has turned to liquid nitrogen. For 3 years, I poured my personal inheritance into Ji Yang's startup. I used my mother's connections to build his reputation. I was the silent engine behind his ascent, and now that he has reached the summit, he has pushed me off the cliff to make room for a muse who has never done a day's work in her life. I look around the empty, expensive garden. The mockery of it all is breathtaking. He lured me here, to this secluded estate, specifically so I wouldn't be able to crash his real wedding. He wanted me tucked away like a shameful secret while he debuted his new queen to the world. Miss Yi, I turn. Standing at the edge of the rose bushes is Assistant Chen, a man I recognize instantly. He doesn't work for Ji Yang, he works for the Lu family patriarch. Behind him, idling like a silent predator, is a matte black Maybach. The windows are tinted so darkly they reflect the garden back like a distorted nightmare. "Mr. Lu has been expecting this," Chen says softly, his face a mask of professional neutrality. "He told me that if you were left standing here alone, I should offer you a ride." My heart skips a beat, not out of fear, but out of a sudden, soaring realization of opportunity. Soren Lu, Ji Yang's estranged uncle, the Ice King of the Lu conglomerate. He is the man Ji Yang fears most, the man whose shadow Ji Yang has spent a lifetime trying to escape. Soren Lu is 32, a decade younger than the traditional elders of the family, and 10 times more ruthless. He owns half the city, yet he lives like a ghost, rarely seen, never crossed. I don't hesitate. I grab the heavy train of my dress, the silk tearing slightly on a thorn, and I march toward that car. I don't look back at the altar where I was supposed to trade my soul for a lie. Assistant Chen opens the door. The interior of the Maybach is chilled to a precise, bracing temperature. The scent of sandalwood and expensive leather hits me first. And then, I see him. Soren Lu is sitting in the corner, a tablet glowing in his hand. He is wearing a charcoal suit that looks like it was molded onto his frame. His features are sharp, carved from obsidian, and his eyes are piercing, metallic gray. Don't even look up as I slide into the seat beside him, my voluminous skirt filling the entire cabin. "You're late, Iran," he says. His voice is a low, resonant baritone that vibrates in the small space. "I was busy watching a funeral," I reply, my voice steadier than I expected. "My own." He finally turns his head. His gaze travels from my messy hair down to the diamond necklace Ji Yang gave me, a necklace I now realize was likely a replica of the one he bought for Lin Xia. "You don't look like a corpse. You look like a woman who just realized she's been holding a losing hand for 3 years. I'm ready to change the game, Soren," I say, leaning toward him. The proximity is electric. He is the most dangerous man in this city, and right now, he is my only bridge to survival. Ji Yang and Lin Xia just merged their lives. They think they've secured the Lu family inheritance by presenting a united front to your grandfather. But the bylaws state that the inheritance goes to the first married male of the direct line who can maintain a stable, high-profile partnership. Soren's eyes narrow. And you think I need a wife? I think you need a weapon. I counter. Ji Yang knows my mother's business secrets. He knows how I built his portfolio. If he keeps me as an enemy, I'm a liability. But if I marry you, I'm his worst nightmare. I'll bring my entire network, my mother's legacy, and my knowledge of Ji Yang's weaknesses to your table. In return, you give me the power to strip him of everything he just stole. The car begins to move, gliding away from the rose garden. Outside, the world thinks I'm a jilted bride hiding in shame. Inside, I am negotiating a declaration of war. Soren sets his tablet down. He reaches out, his long, cold fingers grazing the lace on my shoulder. You're asking me to enter a contract with a woman who was, until 10 minutes ago, pledged to my nephew. That's a scandal even I might find tedious. It's not a scandal if it's a coup, I whisper. He left me at the altar. I'm not his ex. I'm the woman who outgrew him. Marry me, Soren. Let's give the city a wedding they'll actually remember. The silence in the car is heavy, punctuated only by the soft hum of the tires on the asphalt. Soren studies me with a predatory intensity, as if he's looking for a crack in my resolve. I don't blink. I've already lost everything that mattered to the old Yiran. This new version of me is forged in the fire of that live stream. Suddenly, Soren leans in close, his breath ghosting over my ear. I don't do stable partnerships, Ran. I do total surrenders. If we do this, you aren't just my wife on paper. You are my partner in every shadow, every lie, and every victory. Are you prepared to be the most hated woman in the Liu family? I'd rather be hated and powerful than pitted and broken. I snap. A ghost of a smile, sharp and dangerous, touches his lips. He turns to Assistant Chen. Drive to the North District. Tell the registrar to stay open. And Chen, yes, Mr. Liu. Send a floral arrangement to the Grand Cathedral. Lilies. For a funeral. Put my name on the card. And Yi rants. As the Maybach speeds toward the city center, I look out the window. The sun is setting, casting long, bloody shadows over the skyline. My wedding day isn't over. It's just finally beginning. Ji Yang thinks he won a prize today. He has no idea he just opened the gates to his own destruction. I reach up and unclip the diamond necklace, the one Ji Yang gave me. I drop it onto the floor of the Maybach. It hits the carpet with a dull thud, a piece of trash in a multi-million-dollar car. Section 1 is finished, I think to myself, watching the city lights flicker to life. The first move has been made. The North District Registrar's office is a cold, monolithic building of grey granite and reinforced glass, standing like a silent sentinel against the city's midnight fog. It is usually closed by 5, but for Soren Liu, the concept of business hours is a suggestion he routinely ignores. As the Maybach glides to a halt, Assistant Chen opens the door. I step out. The heavy silk of my wedding gown trailing behind me like a wounded wing. The transition from the garden to this sterile, fluorescent-lit corridor is jarring. The air here smells of floor wax and old paper, the scent of finality. Soren walks beside me, his pace measured and predatory. He doesn't offer an arm, and I don't seek one. We are two generals entering a pact, not two lovers beginning a journey. Inside the private office, an elderly registrar with trembling hands waits behind a heavy mahogany desk. He looks at my extravagant, slightly torn wedding dress, then at Soren's lethal, dark silhouette, and wisely chooses to ask 0 questions. The papers are ready, Mr. Liu, the man whispers. Soren doesn't sit. He leans against the desk, tapping a gold fountain pen against the wood. Before you sign, Ran, there is something you should know about the house you are entering. I look at him. My hand hovering over the heavy vellum document. I'm already in the house, Soren. I'm just looking for the keys to the basement. It's deeper than a basement, he says, his grey eyes darkening. The Liu family inheritance isn't just about money, it's about the chairmanship. My father left a clause. The first male heir to marry must maintain that marriage for 3 years to solidify his claim to the primary trust. Ji Yang thinks he's won because he's first. But the bylaws specify the marriage must be registered and legally binding before the next lunar cycle ends. He leans in, his shadow falling over the contract. Ji Yang and Lin Xia had a ceremony today. Yes, but they can't register it until Monday because of the public holiday. If we sign this now, at 11, 58 p.m. on a Friday. We are the first. Legally, we preempt his claim. We don't just compete with him. We erase his victory before the ink on his wedding photos is dry. A surge of adrenaline hits me. This isn't just a marriage, it's a legal ambush. You've been planning this. I realize aloud. You didn't just happen to be at the rose garden. Soren's lips thin into a cold line. I don't believe in accidents, Ran. I believe in timing. I knew Ji Yang would betray you. He's a man of small appetites and even smaller loyalty. I was simply waiting for the moment you realized it yourself. I feel a flicker of anger. Was I just a pawn in his long game? But then I remember the sight of Ji Yang kissing Lin Xia in that cathedral. The anger shifts, focusing into a sharp, lethal point. If Soren used me, then I will use him right back until there is nothing left of our enemies. And your conditions? I ask, picking up the pen. 3 years, Soren says, his voice dropping to a low, icy vibration. During those 3 years, you are the mistress of the Liu estate. You will attend every gala, every board meeting, and every family dinner by my side. You will never contact Ji Yang. You will never show weakness in front of my mother. And most importantly, he pauses, his gaze locking onto mine with a terrifying intensity. You will never fall in love with me. This is a merger, not a romance. If you break that rule, I will discard you as easily as Ji Yang did. I let out a short, sharp laugh. Love, Soren, after today, I've developed a permanent allergy to the word. You have a deal. I press the pen to the paper. The ink flows smoothly. Yi Ran. The registrar stamps the document with a heavy, metallic thud. It sounds like a gavel. It sounds like a cell door closing on Ji Yang's future. Congratulations, Mrs. Liu, the registrar says, his voice cracking. Soren takes the pen from my hand. He doesn't sign immediately. He looks at my wrist, where a faint bruise is beginning to form, a grip mark from this morning when Ji Yang tried to force me to stay in the garden for my own safety. Soren's thumb brushes over the bruise. His touch is cold. Yet it sends a jolt through my skin that feels like a warning. He touched you, he murmurs. It isn't a question, it's an accusation. It won't happen again, I say firmly. Soren signs his name in a jagged, aggressive script. Soren Liu. As we exit the building, the midnight air is thick with fog. Assistant Chen is waiting by the car, holding a thick manila envelope. Sir, the press release is ready for Monday morning, Chen reports. And the floral arrangement was delivered to the cathedral's reception hall. Ji Yang was agitated. Soren echoes as we slide back into the Maybach. That's a mild word for a man who just realized his uncle stole his bride and his inheritance in the same breath. I lean back against the leather seats, feeling the weight of the day finally beginning to press down on me. The adrenaline is fading, replaced by a cold, calculating fatigue. What's the next move? The next move, Soren says, looking out at the passing streetlights, is the gift. Ji Yang and Lin Xia are staying at the Pearl Heights Hotel tonight. Tomorrow, they will come to your penthouse to check on you. They expect to find a broken woman packing her bags. Instead, they will find their landlord. I look at him, surprised. Their landlord. I bought the building 3 hours ago, Soren says casually, as if he were talking about buying a newspaper. Everything Ji Yang thinks he owns is currently under my shadow. Tomorrow, Ran, we give them their first taste of the New World Order. Suddenly, my phone buzzes. It's a text from Ji Yang. Ran, I'm so sorry. I'll explain everything. Xia is fragile. She needed this. I've left a check for 5 million in your drawer. Take the money and go to Paris for a few months. Don't make this difficult. I show the screen to Soren. Soren doesn't even blink. He takes my phone, types a single sentence, and hits send. The check was short a few zeros. See you tomorrow, nephew. He's going to be looking for you all night. I say, my heart racing. Let him look, Soren replies, closing his eyes. He'll need the practice. Soon, he'll be looking for a place to hide. And there won't be a single corner of this city I haven't turned into a mirror of his own failure. The car turns toward the elite residential district. As we pull up to my penthouse, the one I bought with my mother's money, the one Ji Yang lived in for free for 2 years, I see the lights are on. They're already there, I whisper, seeing Ji Yang's sports car parked in the driveway. He has the audacity to bring her to my home on their wedding night. No, Soren says, his eyes snapping open, flashing like flint. He has the audacity to think it's still your home. From tonight, it's ours, and I don't like uninvited guests in my bedroom. He exits the car first, extending a hand to me. I take it. His grip is like iron, unyielding and strangely grounding. As we walk toward the elevator, I catch my reflection in the lobby's gold leaf mirrors. I am still in my wedding dress, but the jilted look is gone. I look like a queen returning to a palace that has been desecrated by peasants. The elevator dings. The doors slide open. Inside my living room, the scent of expensive champagne and Lynn Shear's cloying perfume fills the air. I hear their laughter, a sharp, grating sound that cuts through the quiet. I'm just saying, gee. Lynn Shear's voice drifts from the balcony. Ran will understand eventually. She's always been the strong one. She doesn't need the Lu name like we do. She'll be fine. Ji Yang's voice follows, sounding oily and satisfied. I'll give her the beach house in the divorce settlement. Oh wait, we never actually married. I'll just give it to her as a parting gift. I feel Soren's hand tighten on mine. The air in the room suddenly drops 10 degrees. I'm afraid the beach house isn't yours to give. Ji Yang, I say, stepping into the light. The laughter stops instantly. Ji Yang turns, a glass of champagne in his hand, his face transitioning from smugness to pure, unadulterated horror. Beside him, Lynn Shear, still in her reception dress, let out a small, strangled gasp. But they aren't looking at me. They are looking at the man standing behind me, his hand possessively on my waist. Uncle, Soren. Ji Yang stammers, the glass slipping from his fingers and shattering on the hardwood floor. Not just your uncle, Ji Yang, Soren says, his voice a lethal caress, your landlord, and as of tonight, your superior in every legal sense of the word. I smile, and for the first time today, it's a real smile. You forgot your gift at the cathedral, Ji Yang, so we brought it to you in person. The sound of the champagne glass shattering on the floor echoes like a gunshot in the sterile silence of my living room. Ji Yang stands frozen, his face draining of color until he looks like a ghost haunting his own celebration. Beside him, Lynn Shear's innocent facade cracks, her eyes darting between me and Soren with a mixture of confusion and mounting dread. Uncle Soren, what is the meaning of this? Ji Yang finally manages to choke out. He tries to straighten his tuxedo jacket. A pathetic attempt to reclaim some semblance of dignity. This is Yi Rant's apartment. It's a private matter. Why are you here with her? At this hour? Soren doesn't answer immediately. He walks further into the room, his presence so overbearing that the sprawling, 3,000 square foot penthouse suddenly feels cramped. He stops by the wet bar, picks up a clean crystal glass, and inspects it for dust with a terrifyingly calm focus. Private matter. Soren's voice is a low, dangerous silk. I find it fascinating that you consider trespassing a private matter, and as for why I am here, he turns, his grey eyes locking onto Ji Yang's with the weight of a falling glacier. I generally spend the night with my wife. Don't you? The silence that follows is so heavy it feels physical. Wife, Lynn Shear shrieks, her voice hitting a high, discordant note. She clutches Ji Yang's arm, her knuckles white. That's impossible. Ran, you were supposed to be at the rose garden. You couldn't have. I step forward, the silk of my gown whispering against the floor. I let the light catch the heavy, emerald-cut diamond on my left hand, a ring Soren's assistant had produced in the car, a Lu family heirloom that made my previous engagement ring look like a piece of costume jewelry. The rose garden was lovely, sheer, very quiet, perfect for reflection, I say, my voice dripping with honeyed poison. It gave me just enough time to realize that I had outgrown a boy and was ready for a man. We registered the marriage an hour ago. Legally, I am now your aunt. I expect you to address me with the appropriate respect from now on. Ji Yang shakes his head violently. No, this is a stunt. You're doing this to spite me. Uncle, you can't be serious. This woman, she was engaged to me this morning. She's using you. Soren finally pours himself a drink, the amber liquid swirling in the glass. He takes a slow, deliberate sip before looking at Ji Yang. Using me, Ji Yang. You've always had a remarkably inflated sense of your own value. Yiran didn't need to use me to ruin you. She could have done that with a single phone call to the fraud department of Luji International. I am here because she offered me something you never could, competence and loyalty. Soren walks over to me, placing a hand on the small of my back. The heat of his palm through the lace is a stark contrast to the icy atmosphere. But let's talk about this apartment. This penthouse was purchased under the Yi family trust, but the land lease was held by a subsidiary of the Lu Group. I bought that subsidiary this afternoon. As of 4 hours ago, I am the owner of this entire building. He looks around the room with distaste, and I don't recall signing a lease for either of you. You have 20 minutes to pack your things. Anything left behind will be burned. Ran. Ji Yang turns to me, his eyes pleading. You can't do this. We've lived here for 2 years. This is my home too. All my files, my prototypes for the new project, they're in the study. Your prototypes. I let out a sharp, cold laugh. You mean the prototypes I designed while you were out scouting locations with Lin Xie? Those belong to me. Everything in that study is the intellectual property of the Yi estate. You're lucky I'm letting you take your clothes. Lin Xie begins to sob, the practiced, beautiful sob that used to make my father give her anything she wanted. Sister, how can you be so cruel? It's our wedding night. Where are we supposed to go? All the hotels are booked for the fashion gala. I hear the Pearl Heights has a lovely suite. I reply, mimicking the pitying tone she used on me for years. Oh wait, you already stayed there tonight, didn't you? Before you came here to gloat. As for where you go, that's not my concern. Perhaps you can go back to that tiny apartment your mother lived in before she married my father. It might help you remember where you came from. Ji Yang's face turns a dark, mottled red. The ego that I had spent years building up was now being dismantled in front of the one person he feared most. You think this makes you a Lu? You're just a placeholder. Ran. My uncle will tire of you in a month. Soren moves so fast it's a blur. In 1 second, he is by the bar. In the next, he is inches from Ji Yang's face. He doesn't raise his hand, but the sheer aura of violence radiating from him makes Ji Yang stumble back into the shattered glass. 15 minutes. Ji Yang, Soren whispers. If you are still here in 16, I will have the security team remove you, and I will ensure the footage of you being thrown out in your wedding suit is the first thing the board sees on Monday morning. Panic finally sets in. Ji Yang looks at the clock, then at the cold, unyielding expression on his uncle's face. He realizes the pity he planned to show me has turned into a noose around his own neck. He grabs Lin Xie's hand and drags her toward the bedroom to throw their belongings into suitcases. I stand in the center of the room, watching them scurry like rats. It should feel empty, but instead, I feel a strange, pulsing power. You handled that well, Soren says, returning to my side. He smells of sandalwood and something sharper, like ozone before a storm. I've been rehearsing that confrontation in my head since I saw the live stream. I admit, my voice trembling slightly as the adrenaline peaks, but having you here, it made the reality much better than the rehearsal. Soren looks at me, his gaze lingering on my lips for a second too long. Don't get used to the backup. Ran, in this world, you have to be the one holding the knife. I'm just the one making sure no one jumps you from behind. Suddenly, the bedroom door flies open. Lin Xie runs out, clutching a small, velvet box. My necklace, the Lu family heirloom Ji Yang gave me. It's gone. She glares at me. You stole it. You knew we were coming and you took it from the safe. I look at her calmly. You mean the diamond necklace with the floral filigree, the one that's been in the Yi family for 3 generations, the one my mother left to me. Ji Yang said it was a Lu heirloom. She screams. I turn to Ji Yang, who is shuffling out with 2 heavy suitcases, his face flushed with shame. Is that what you told her, Ji, that my mother's jewelry was yours to give, that you were already the head of the Lu family? Ji Yang doesn't look up. He can't. He knows he's been caught in a web of his own lies. It's a fake anyway. Xie, I say, leaning back against the marble counter. The real one is in a bank vault. The one he gave you was a high-quality cubic zirconia. He couldn't afford the real thing because he spent all his liquid capital trying to buy my silence with that $5 million check. Lin Xie looks at Ji Yang, her eyes wide with betrayal. The perfect man she stole is already falling apart at the seams. Ji, is that true? We have to go. Xie, now, Ji Yang growls, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the elevator. As the elevator doors begin to close, I catch one last glimpse of them. The golden couple of the evening, looking haggard, humiliated, and broken. When the ding signifies they've reached the lobby, I finally exhale. The silence of the penthouse returns, but it's a different kind of silence now. It's the silence of a clean slate. Soren sets his glass down. They'll go to your father's house. By tomorrow morning, the entire city will know about the scandalous marriage of Soren Lu. Let them talk, I say, turning to him. I want them to. The louder the noise, the harder it will be for the board to ignore what's coming on Monday. Soren walks closer, his eyes searching mine. You're cold, Iran. You're shivering. I'm not cold, I say, though my body is shaking. I'm finally awake. Soren reaches out and, for the first time, his touch isn't just a tactical display. He unfastens the heavy lace veil that has been weighing down my head all day. He lets it fall to the floor, a white cloud of discarded illusions. Go wash the smell of them off, he says, his voice unexpectedly soft. This is your home again. Tomorrow, we start the real work. I nod and walk toward the master suite. As I reach the door, I turn back. Soren is standing by the window, looking out at the city he rules, his silhouette sharp against the glass. He looks lonely, even in his power. Soren, he turns slightly. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Ran, he says, his face returning to its usual mask of stone. The price of this wedding hasn't been fully paid. Sleep well, you'll need your strength for the boardroom. I close the door, the click of the lock sounding like a period at the end of a long, painful sentence. I strip off the Vera Wang dress, the dress I once thought was the most beautiful thing I'd ever own, and leave it in a heap on the floor. I step into the shower, letting the hot water scrub away the day. I am Yi Ran, I am the wife of Soren Lu, and I am about to burn Ji Yang's empire to the ground. The Luji International Headquarters is a soaring obelisk of chrome and glass that pierces the smoggy Monday morning sky. It is the altar of power in this city, and today, it is where I intend to perform a public execution. I step out of the car, no longer the girl in the torn lace. I am wearing a sharp-shouldered, midnight navy power suit, my hair pulled back into a sleek, lethal ponytail. Beside me, Soren Lu looks like a god of war in bespoke tailoring. He doesn't say a word. But the way the security guards bow, nearly doubling over in a mix of awe and terror, speaks volumes. Ready? Soren asks as we approach the private executive elevator. I've been ready for 3 years, I reply. I just didn't know I was waiting for this specific door to open. The boardroom on the 88th floor is already buzzing. The air is thick with the scent of expensive espresso and the nervous sweat of men who know a storm is coming. At the far end of the long mahogany table sits Ji Yang. He looks terrible, his eyes are bloodshot, his skin sallow, but he is trying to project confidence, leaning back in his chair as if he already owns the room. Beside him, in a seat that shouldn't be hers, is Lin Xia, wearing a dress that is far too bright and far too cheap for a meeting of this caliber. When the double doors swing open and Soren walks in, the room goes silent. When I walk in behind him, the silence turns into a vacuum. Ji Yang's jaw drops. Ran, what are you doing here? This is a closed board session for the Luji merger. Security, sit down, Ji Yang, Soren says, his voice a low vibration that seems to rattle the windows. He doesn't go to his usual seat. He pulls out the chair at the very head of the table, the chairman's seat, and gestures for me to sit in the one directly to his right. Uncle, you can't be serious, Ji Yang says, standing up, his hands trembling. Yi Ran has no standing here. She's a civilian. And after the confusion this weekend, her presence is a conflict of interest. On the contrary, I say, opening my leather portfolio and sliding a stack of documents across the table. The friction of paper on wood is the only sound in the room. I am here as the newly appointed majority proxy for the Yi estate's 15% stake in this merger. And, more importantly, I am here as the legal consultant for the Lu Group's internal audit. Audit, Ji Yang's voice cracks. He looks at the documents. What audit? The one that began the moment I realized you were using Yi estate funds to pay for your surprise wedding at the Grand Cathedral, I say, my voice steady and cold. Did you think I wouldn't notice $2.4 million missing from the research and development budget of the Aurelia project? You labeled it as consulting fees. I tracked those fees to a shell company owned by Lin Xia's mother. The board members begin to whisper, their eyes darting toward Ji Yang like sharks sensing blood in the water. That's a lie. Lin Xia jumps up, her white lotus mask finally shattering. Ji Yang earned that money. He's the genius behind the new tech launch. You're just jealous because he chose me. I don't even look at her. I look at board member Zhong, a man who values profit above all else. Mr. Zhong, you were expecting a presentation today on the Project Phoenix tech specs, were you not? The revolutionary AI interface that Ji Yang claimed to have developed. Jong nods slowly. The future of the company depends on it. Then you'll be interested to know, I say, clicking a remote. The massive screen at the front of the room flickers to life. That the code Ji Yang submitted is a 90% match for a defunct project from my mother's old firm. He didn't invent it, he plagiarized it. And because he didn't understand the core logic, the current version has a critical failure rate of 40% in stress tests. I look at Ji Yang, whose face has turned a sickly shade of grey. You thought you could just take my work, slap your name on it, and ride it to the CEO's office, but you forgot one thing, Ji. I wrote the encryption keys, and I've just revoked your access. You can't do this, Ji Yang stammers, looking around at the board for support, but no one is looking at him. They are looking at the data on the screen, the proof of his incompetence. I already have, I say, as the proxy for the Yi estate. I am withdrawing our intellectual property from the Luji merger effective immediately. Without my mother's patents, this merger is a hollow shell. You have no product. You have no capital. And according to the contract you signed with me 3 years ago, you now owe the Yi estate a liquidated damages fee of $40 million, $40 million. Ji Yang collapses back into his chair. I don't have that kind of money, I know, I say, leaning forward, but you do have shares. Shares that you will now sign over to the Lu Group at a 50% discount to cover your debts. Or, we can let the police handle the embezzlement charges. I'm sure the fragile Lin Xia will love visiting you in a state penitentiary. Soren finally speaks, his voice like a gavel. Ji Yang, you have disgraced the Lu name. You used the company as a personal playground for your infidelities and your ego. You are hereby stripped of all executive titles. Security will escort you and, this woman, from the premises. Uncle, please, Ji Yang pleads, his eyes welling with pathetic tears. I did it for us. I did it to make the company stronger. You did it because you are small, Soren says, not even bothering to look at him. And small men have no place at this table. 2 hulking security guards enter the room. They don't ask, they simply grab Ji Yang by the arms. Lin Xia is screaming, hurling insults at me, her face contorted in a way that is far from innocent. You bitch, you ruined everything. We were going to be the most powerful couple in the city. She shrieks as she is dragged toward the door. I watch them go, my expression unreadable. I thought this moment would bring a rush of joy, but instead, it feels like a weight being lifted. It's not about the revenge. It's about the fact that I no longer have to carry their lies. The door slams shut. The boardroom is quiet once more. Now, Soren says, turning to the board members, who are all sitting upright, terrified of being the next target. Shall we discuss the real Project Phoenix, the one my wife actually designed? For the next 2 hours, I command the room. I present the real data, the real vision, and the real path to profitability. For the first time in my life, I am not the woman behind the man. I am the woman leading the empire. When the meeting adjourns, the board members line up to shake my hand. They don't look at me as Soren's wife. They look at me as the person who just saved their investments. Once the room is empty, I sink into my chair, the silence echoing in my ears. Soren walks over. Standing behind me, he places his hands on my shoulders. His grip is firm, a rare gesture of physical support. You were magnificent, he murmurs. I was terrifying, I correct him. A small smile playing on my lips. The two are not mutually exclusive, he says. He leans down, his face close to mine. Ji Yang is out, but is like a cornered animal now. He'll go to your father. He'll try to use the family connection to claw his way back. Let him, I say, standing up and facing him. The height difference is still there, but I no longer feel small. My father hasn't seen the new me yet. He thinks I'm the same daughter who would do anything for a scrap of his approval. He's about to find out that his daughter is a Lu now. Soren's eyes flare with something that looks suspiciously like pride. Then let's not keep him waiting. There's a gala on Thursday. Your father is the guest of honor. It's the perfect place for a family reunion. I look at the ring on my finger. The emerald-cut diamond flashing in the afternoon sun. The boardroom was just the beginning. The real war is personal. Section 4 is finished, I think, as we walk out of the room. The empire is shifting. The pieces are moving, and for the first time, I am the one playing the board. The grand crystal ballroom is a dizzying expanse of gold leaf, mirrored pillars, and shimmering chandeliers that cast a fractured, kaleidoscopic light over the city's elite. Tonight is the annual Founders Gala, And the guest of honor is my father, Yi Shanhai. He stands at the far end of the hall, a glass of vintage scotch in hand. Holding court like a king whose throne is built on the bones of my mother's legacy. Beside him stands Lin Xia, looking pale and fragile in a white gown that screams victim. She is clinging to her mother, Qin Mai, the woman who spent years pretending to be my mother's best friend before moving into her bedroom. They are surrounded by a circle of socialites, and even from the entrance, I can hear the hushed, sympathetic whispers, poor Lin Xia, to be abandoned on her wedding night. I heard Yi Ran forced her way into the Lu family through some dark contract. I stand at the top of the grand staircase, my hand resting on the crook of Soren's arm. I am wearing a gown of liquid obsidian, a dress that doesn't just catch the light, it swallows it. It is backless, showing the sharp, defiant line of my spine. And my neck is adorned with a choker of raw sapphires that look like frozen tears. They've spent the last 3 days painting you as the villain, Soren says, his voice a low, amused rumble against my ear. Are you prepared to live up to the reputation? Villains have more fun, Soren, I reply, tilting my chin up, and they usually have better wardrobes. As we descend the stairs, the room begins to tilt. One by one, the conversations die out. The sight of Soren Lu, a man who famously avoids these frivolous gatherings, attending as a consort to the woman they were just mocking, is enough to cause a collective intake of breath. My father's eyes find mine. For a moment, I see a flash of the old fear I used to feel, the desperate need to explain, to apologize, to make him love me. But then I feel Soren's hand tighten slightly on mine, a silent anchor, and the fear dissolves into a cold, hard resolve. Ran, my father bellows. Stepping forward, he doesn't look like a loving parent, he looks like a man whose business deals are being threatened. What is the meaning of this? I've spent 48 hours trying to reach you. Ji Yang tells me you've gone mad, that you've used some legal loophole to steal his shares. I stop a few feet from him, the crowd parting like the Red Sea. Hello, father, you look well. I see the Yi Estate's wine cellar is treating you well, don't you? Hello, father me. He points a shaking finger at Soren. And you, Mr. Lu, I respected your family, but to take advantage of my daughter's emotional instability to spite your own nephew, it's disgraceful. Soren steps forward, his aura so oppressive that my father actually takes a half step back. Mr. Yi, your daughter is the most stable person in this room. If she were unstable, she would have burned your house down the moment she saw your stepdaughter wearing her mother's jewelry. Instead, she chose to become my wife and the chairwoman of the Luji merger. I would suggest you choose your next words very carefully. Lin Xia lets out a sob, stepping into the light. Ran, please, how could you? I thought we were sisters. If you wanted the Lu family status so badly, you could have just asked. You didn't have to ruin Ji Yang. His heartbroken. I walk toward her, my heels clicking like a countdown on the marble. I stop when I am inches from her face. She tries to shrink back. But her mother, Qin Mai, holds her steady, glaring at me with eyes full of venom. Heartbroken, I laugh, a sound that carries to every corner of the ballroom. Ji Yang isn't heartbroken. Xia, his broke. There's a difference. And as for being sisters, we were never sisters. You were a guest in my mother's house who stayed too long and forgot your place. How dare you? Qin Mai hisses. Shanhai, are you going to let her speak to us this way, after all we've done for her? What exactly have you done for me, Qin Mai? I ask, my voice dropping to a lethal whisper. Besides caring for my mother while she was sick, all while you were already pregnant with Lin Xia. Or perhaps you mean the way you helped me manage my inheritance by funneling it into your brother's failing construction firm. The room gasps. The perfect Yi family image is cracking in real time. My father's face turns a dark purple. That is enough. You are making a scene. Give me the Lu family heirloom you stole from Xia and leave this gala immediately. The heirloom. I reach into my small clutch and pull out a delicate, velvet pouch. You mean this? I pull out a diamond-encrusted brooch in the shape of a phoenix. The crowd murmurs, it's a legendary piece, once belonging to the Lu matriarch. Lin Xia's eyes light up with greed. Yes, that's it. Ji Yang gave it to me as a wedding gift. Interesting, I say, holding it up to the light. Because this heirloom was reported stolen from the Lu family vault 6 years ago. Soren, isn't that right? Soren nods, his eyes fixed on Lin Xia. A grand theft. The perpetrator was never caught, but the black market trail led to a certain Mr. Lin in the outskirts of the city, Lin Xia's uncle. If I recall correctly, Lin Xia's face turns white. No, that's not. Ji Yang bought it for me. He said it was legal, actually, I say, my voice ringing out clearly. Ji Yang didn't buy it. He found it in your mother's safe and thought it was a Lu heirloom he could use to impress you, but in reality, it's evidence that your family has been laundering stolen goods through the Yi family business for years. I turned to my father, who looks like he's having a heart attack. Father, did you know your loyal wife was using your shipping lanes to move stolen jewelry? Or were you too busy mourning my mother to notice the criminal enterprise in your own living room? Suddenly, a group of men in dark suits enters the ballroom. They aren't security. They are the Economic Crimes Bureau. Mr. Yi Shanhai, Mrs. Qin Mai, the lead investigator steps forward. We have a warrant for a full audit of the Yi Corporation, based on evidence provided by Mrs. Soren Liu. The panic that erupts is delicious. My father tries to protest, but the investigators are efficient. They lead him and a screaming Qin Mai toward the side exit to avoid a total riot. Lin Xia is left standing alone in the center of the room, her white lotus gown looking like a shroud of failure. I walk up to her one last time. You wanted to be a Lu Xia, you wanted the drama, the power, the attention. Well, look around, everyone is looking at you. Are you enjoying the spotlight? Lin Xia collapses to her knees, sobbing for real this time, not the pretty, practiced tears, but the sound of someone who has realized they have nothing left to trade. Soren appears at my side. His hand returning to the small of my back. The first stage of the audit is complete. Your father's assets are frozen. Within a week, the Yi Corporation will be forced into a fire sale, and I'll be there to buy it, I say, watching the investigators disappear. For 10 cents on the dollar, I'm taking my mother's name back. The ballroom is silent now, the music having stopped long ago. The elite of the city are staring at me, but for the first time, there is no pity in their eyes. There is fear and respect. Soren leans down, his lips brushing my temple. You've made a lot of enemies tonight. Ran. Good, I say, turning to him. The adrenaline is humming in my ears, making my heart beat in time with the flickering candles. It means I'm finally standing for something. But the victory is interrupted by a shadow by the balcony. I see him, Ji Yang. He isn't in a suit, he's disheveled, his eyes wild, watching us from the darkness of the terrace. He looks like a man who has lost his mind. He catches my eye and mouths a single word. Wait. Soren notices him too. His grip on my waist tightens, his eyes narrowing into slits. Chen, he calls out to his assistant, secure the perimeter. My nephew is looking for a way to die today. Let's make sure he doesn't take anyone with him. As we walk out of the ballroom, leaving the ruins of the Yi family behind us, I realize that the refreshing feeling of revenge is only half the story. The other half is the terrifying realization that once you burn everything down, you have to be the one to build something new in the ashes. Section 5 is finished. I think as we step into the cool night air, the gala was a slaughterhouse. Now, the real hunt begins. The aftermath of the gala felt like the silence after a massive explosion. While the headlines were still screaming about the Yi family's disgrace, the world inside the Lu Manor was eerily still. It was raining, a relentless, grey downpour that turned the expansive grounds into a blurred watercolor of shadows and mist. I was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows of the private library, watching the droplets race down the glass. I was no longer the obsidian queen of the ballroom. I was wrapped in a soft, oversized cashmere sweater, a cup of tea cooling in my hands. For the first time in years, the fight-or-flight response that had governed my life was starting to settle into something else. A heavy, deliberate footstep sounded behind me. I didn't need to turn to know it was Soren. The police have finished their initial sweep of your father's office, he said, his voice cutting through the sound of the rain. They found more than just the jewelry logs. They found the offshore accounts Ji Yang used to siphon the road funds. It's a clean sweep, Ran. They're looking at 10 to 15 years. And Ji Yang, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He was at the gala. I saw him on the balcony. Soren moved into my peripheral vision. He was dressed casually, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, but his presence was still like a loaded weapon. He vanished into the service tunnels before my men could grab him. He's desperate. A man with nothing left to lose is a man who stops following the rules of the game. I'm not afraid of him, I said. though a small shiver traced its way down my spine. "You should be," Soren replied, stepping closer until I could feel the heat radiating from him, not because he's strong, but because he's a coward. Cowards strike from the dark. Before I could respond, the heavy oak doors of the library burst open. Assistant Chen rushed in, his usual composure frayed. "Mr. Liu, there's been an incident at the south gate. A delivery truck rammed the barrier. We think it was a diversion." Soren's entire demeanor shifted in a heartbeat. The husband vanished, replaced by the general. "Lock down the perimeter." "Ran, stay here. Do not leave this room." "Soren, stay," he commanded, his eyes flashing with a protective fire that startled me. He turned and disappeared into the hallway, his voice already barking orders into a radio. I stood in the center of the library, the silence now feeling heavy and ominous. I checked the locks on the doors, my heart hammering against my ribs. I tried to tell myself I was safe, that the Liu Manor was a fortress, but the image of Ji Yang's crazed eyes on the balcony kept flickering in my mind. Minutes passed like hours. Then, I heard it, a faint, rhythmic scraping sound coming from the ventilation duct near the ceiling. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't a movie. This was my life. I grabbed a heavy brass letter opener from the desk, my knuckles white. The vent cover clattered to the floor, and a figure dropped down. Landing heavily on the Persian rug, he was soaked to the bone, his expensive suit jacket torn and covered in grease. "Ran," Ji Yang rasped, pushing his wet hair out of his eyes. He looked like a cornered animal. "You thought you could just replace me. You thought you could just trade up to my uncle and leave me in the dirt." "Get out, Ji Yang," I said, my voice shaking but loud. "The security teams are already on their way. You're finished." "I'm not finished until I take back what's mine." He lunged toward me, his movements erratic. I dodged behind the massive mahogany desk, the brass letter opener held out in front of me. "Nothing was ever yours," I shouted. "My money, my work, my mother's legacy. You were just a parasite. And the host has finally woken up. I loved you," he screamed, his face contorting. "I did everything for us. Lin Xia was she was just a way to get the shares. You don't know what love is," I snapped. "You only love the reflection of yourself in someone else's praise. You're pathetic," he snarled and vaulted over the desk. I tried to run for the door, but he caught the sleeve of my sweater, jerking me back. We tumbled to the floor. He was stronger than he looked, driven by a manic, desperate energy. His hands moved toward my throat, but I managed to jam the letter opener into his shoulder. He howled in pain, pulling back for a second. That second was all I needed. The library doors didn't just open, they were kicked off their hinges. Soren Liu charged in, a blur of controlled violence. He didn't use a weapon, he didn't need to. He grabbed Ji Yang by the collar and threw him across the room as if he weighed nothing. Ji Yang slammed into a bookshelf, hundreds of leather-bound volumes raining down on him. Before he could even catch his breath, Soren was on him, his knee pinned to Ji Yang's chest, his hand hovering inches from Ji Yang's throat. "I told you," Soren whispered, his voice so low it was terrifying. "I don't like uninvited guests. Kill him." Then, Ji Yang choked out, a bloody smile on his lips. "Show her who you really are, uncle. Show her the monster she married." Soren's hand tightened. I saw the muscles in his forearm cord, his eyes turning into cold, grey voids. For a moment, I thought he would actually do it. I thought he would cross that line for me. "Soren, stop," I cried out, rushing to his side. I grabbed his arm, my fingers digging into his sleeve. "Don't, he's not worth it. If you kill him, he wins, he becomes a tragedy. Let him be a common criminal instead." Soren didn't move for a long time. The only sound was the rain and Ji Yang's ragged breathing. Slowly, the darkness in Soren's eyes receded. He stood up, smoothing his shirt with a chilling nonchalance. "Chen," Soren said, not looking away from his nephew, "take him to the basement. Call the police. Tell them we found the intruder who tried to sabotage the Liu infrastructure." As the security guards dragged a sobbing, broken Ji Yang away, the library fell into a different kind of silence. The adrenaline was leaving me, replaced by a violent trembling. I sank onto the sofa, my head in my hands. Soren sat beside me. He didn't say "I told you so." He didn't lecture me. He simply wrapped his arm around me and pulled me into his chest. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice returning to that soft, private baritone. "Just tired," I admitted, leaning into him. He smelled of rain and iron. He tried to say you were a monster. Maybe I am, Soren said, his chin resting on the top of my head. But I'm your monster now, Ran, and as long as you're with me, no one, not Ji Yang, not your father, not the world, will ever touch you again. I looked up at him, and for the first time, I didn't see a contract. I didn't see a cold CEO or a tactical partner. I saw a man who was as scarred and lonely as I was, trying to build a fortress around the only thing he had left to care about. I'm not staying because I'm afraid, I said, my voice gaining strength. I'm staying because I'm finally home. He looked at me. A flicker of something actual warmth crossing his face. He leaned down and pressed a kiss to my forehead. It wasn't a tactical kiss. It wasn't for the press. It was real. Outside, the storm continued to rage. But inside the library, the air was finally still. The ghost of Ji Yang was gone. The cold CEO was thawing. And the woman who had been left at the altar was finally, truly, standing on her own 2 feet. The dust from the legal battlefield had barely settled when I found myself standing in the one place I vowed never to return, the Lin family manor. It was a sprawling, gaudy estate my father had bought for Chiang Mai, a house built on the foundations of my mother's stolen life. Today, it felt less like a home and more like an archaeological site where I was about to dig up the final, darkest secrets of my past. The air inside was stale, smelling of abandoned perfumes and the bitter tang of anxiety. My father was in custody, and Chiang Mai was under house arrest pending the embezzlement trial. I wasn't here for them. I was here for the truth. You have no right to be here. Chiang Mai's voice shrieked from the top of the stairs. She looked haggard, her designer silk robe wrinkled, her face stripped of the expensive makeup that usually masked her cruelty. This house is private property. I didn't stop walking. I had a team of forensic auditors and 2 uniformed officers behind me, actually. Chiang Mai, this house was purchased with funds siphoned from my mother's Aurelia Trust. Legally, you are a squatter in my inheritance. We're here for the archives in the basement. There's nothing there, she cried, but her eyes betrayed her. They flickered toward the heavy oak door leading to the cellar, accompanied by Lawyer Fang, a woman with a reputation for being a shark in a Chanel suit. I descended into the bowels of the house. The basement was a labyrinth of steel filing cabinets and dusty boxes. While the police focused on the recent financial crimes, I headed for the legacy section, the boxes labeled with my mother's name, Yi Anchi. 4 hours. We combed through the papers. My heart ached as I touched my mother's original sketches, her handwriting a graceful dance across the parchment. But as I reached the bottom of a trunk hidden behind a false wall, I found something that made the air leave my lungs. It was a medical file. My mother hadn't died of a sudden, aggressive illness as my father had told me when I was 12. Look at this, Lawyer Fang, I whispered, my fingers trembling as I held up a laboratory report from 14 years ago. The report showed high traces of a specific arsenic derivative in her system, a slow-acting toxin that mimicked the symptoms of a failing heart. Attached to it was a series of receipts for specialized vitamins purchased by my father's assistant at the time. A man who was now Chiang Mai's brother. The room seemed to tilt. I had always known they were thieves. I had known they were liars. But I hadn't known they were murderers. They didn't just steal her company, I said, my voice rising with a cold, terrifying fury. They stole her life. They watched her wither away so they could move into this house and pretend to be royalty. Ran, Lawyer Fang said softly, placing a hand on my shoulder. This is a criminal goldmine. But we need more than just receipts. We need the connection to the distribution. I stood up, the old grief transforming into a white-hot weapon. I know where it is. My father kept a black book in his study. He used to joke that it was his insurance policy against the world. We charged upstairs. Chiang Mai tried to block the door to the study, her face a mask of primal fear. Move, I said. My voice was no longer that of a daughter or a sister. It was the voice of a judge. You'll ruin us. She screamed. Your father did it for you. He wanted to give you everything. He did it for himself. I snapped. I pushed past her, my strength fueled by 14 years of suppressed suspicion. I tore through the study. I threw the trophies he'd won with my mother's designs onto the floor. I ripped the paintings from the walls. Finally, behind a portrait of my father looking distinguished, I found the safe. Soren's voice echoed in my head. In this world, you have to be the one holding the knife. I didn't have the code, but I didn't need it. I looked at the officer, Open it, by any means necessary. The sound of the drill was a symphony to my ears. When the door finally hissed open, I reached in and pulled out a small, leather-bound ledger. It wasn't just an audit of money, it was an audit of souls. It contained the dates, the dosages, and the signatures of the doctor they had bribed to sign the death certificate. I walked out of the study and into the hallway where Chinmay sat huddled on the floor. I dropped the ledger in front of her. "The police are waiting outside," I said, my voice dead and cold. "They aren't here for the embezzlement anymore. They're here for the homicide of Yanchi." Chinmay let out a sound that wasn't human, a wail of pure, unadulterated defeat. As I walked out of the manor, the sun was beginning to set, casting long, crimson shadows over the lawn. I felt a strange lightness. As if the weight of my mother's spirit was finally lifting from my shoulders. I had done more than just take back the company. I had given her justice. A black Maybach was waiting at the gate. Soren was leaning against the door, his silhouette sharp against the fading light. He didn't ask what I found. He saw it in the way I carried myself, no longer a woman running away from a shadow, but a woman who had conquered it. "Is it done?" he asked. "It's just starting," I replied. Handing the ledger to the waiting detectives, "I'm reclaiming Aurelia tomorrow morning. I'm stripping the Yi name from every building in this city. By the time I'm finished, the only thing people will remember about the Yi family is the woman who survived them." Soren opened the car door for me. As I slid into the seat, he lingered for a moment, his gaze intense. "You've surpassed the contract, Ran. You realize that, don't you? You don't need me to be powerful anymore." I looked at him. The man who had given me the keys to my own cage. "I don't need you to be powerful, Soren. I need you to be there when I'm done. There's a difference." He didn't smile, but the look in his eyes was more than any expression could convey. He got into the car, and as we drove away from the ruins of my childhood, I realized that the audit of souls was complete. I had faced my demons and found that they were small, pathetic people who had only lived because I let them. "Next stop?" Soren asked. "The courthouse," I said, looking forward. "I have a legacy to rebuild." The High Court of Justice stands as a cathedral of cold marble and unforgiving light. Today, the air in the gallery is thick, charged with the electricity of a final reckoning. This is no longer a tabloid scandal about a jilted bride. It is a trial that has gripped the nation, the state versus the golden couple and the Yi patriarch. I sit behind the prosecution table, flanked by Soren Liu and lawyer Fang. Across the aisle, Ji Yang and Lin Xia look like hollowed-out versions of themselves. Ji Yang's expensive suit hangs off his gaunt frame, and Lin Xia's white lotus radiance has been replaced by a sallow, frantic desperation. They are no longer the stars of their own movie. They are the debris of a failed heist. The judge, a woman with eyes like flint, bangs her gavel. "We are here for the final sentencing and the resolution of the civil suit regarding the Yi estate assets." Ji Yang's lawyer stands, his voice trembling. "Your Honor, my client was a victim of emotional distress. He was misled by the internal pressures of the Liu family. We ask for a settlement, a portion of the Aurelia patents to cover his legal fees and basic living expenses." I feel a ripple of laughter in my throat, cold and sharp. I stand up before lawyer Fang can even intervene. "Your Honor. If I may," I say, my voice echoing with a clarity that silences the room. I walk toward the center of the court, pulling a single piece of paper from my folder. The defense speaks of living expenses. "I would like to present Exhibit G, the gift of guilt check." I hold up the $5 million check Ji Yang left in my penthouse on his wedding night. On the night he thought he had successfully stolen my life's work and my mother's legacy, Ji Yang offered me this. He called it a parting gift. He believed that a woman's dignity, her career, and her grief could be bought for the price of a mid-sized yacht. He didn't realize that he wasn't buying my silence, he was documenting his own premeditation. I turn to look directly at Ji Yang. His eyes drop, unable to meet mine. "Furthermore," I continue, my voice hardening, "as we have proven through the forensic audit of the Lin Manor, the defendant Lin Xia was not a passive bystander. She was the primary beneficiary of the funds siphoned from my mother's medical trust. She didn't just want my fiancé, she wanted the very blood that kept my mother alive." Lin Xia bursts into tears, a shrill, ugly sound. "It wasn't me, it was my mother. I didn't know. You wore the jewelry, Xia," I snap. Turning on her, "You signed for the deliveries. You lived in the house built on a grave. Ignorance is not a defense for a soul that thrives on theft. The court becomes a blur of testimony. I watch as the evidence, the ledger from the safe, the bank statements, the witness statements from the bribed doctor assembles into a noose. When the judge finally speaks, the silence is absolute. Ji Yang, for the crimes of embezzlement, intellectual property theft, and conspiracy to defraud, you are sentenced to 12 years in a maximum security facility. Lin Xia, for your role in the misappropriation of estate funds and obstruction of justice, you are sentenced to 6 years. The golden couple collapses. Ji Yang is led away in handcuffs, his ego finally, irrevocably shattered. As he passes me, he whispers my name, a pathetic plea for a mercy I do not possess. I don't even blink. Lin Xia is dragged out, her screams for her papa echoing in the hall until the heavy doors swing shut, muffling her into irrelevance. As the court clears, I stay in my seat. Soren remains beside me, his presence a steady, silent weight. You did it, he says, the Yi name is dead. The Lin name is a curse. You are the only one left standing. I'm not just standing, Soren, I say, looking at the high-vaulted ceiling. I'm breathing. For the first time in 14 years. The air doesn't taste like ashes. We walk out of the courthouse together. The steps are swarmed with reporters. Their flashes like 1,000 tiny suns. But I don't hide. I don't look to Soren for protection. I stand at the top of the stairs, the wind whipping my hair, and I address the cameras. Today is not about revenge, I tell the world. It is about the reclamation of the female self. To every woman who has been told she is emotional while being robbed, or fragile while being exploited, the empire you build with your own hands is the only one that will never betray you. The relaunch of Aurelia was not just a fashion show, it was a resurrection. We chose the rooftop of the Lu Tower, 80 stories above the city. Where the wind was sharp and the stars felt close enough to touch, the runway was a sheet of reinforced glass, giving the models the appearance of walking on air. High above the streets where I had once been pitted, backstage was a symphony of organized chaos. I moved through the racks of silk and structured velvet, my hands adjusting a collar here, a hemline there. These weren't just clothes, they were armor. I had integrated the encryption patterns I once wrote for Ji Yang into the textile designs, subtle, geometric lace that carried the DNA of my intelligence and my mother's elegance. 5 minutes, Miss Yi, the stage manager whispered. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool silk of my own suit against my skin. Suddenly, the door to the dressing area opened, and Soren walked in. He looked out of place amidst the sequins and steam, yet he commanded the room instantly. The crowd is restless, he said, his eyes scanning me with an intensity that made my heart hammer. Every major investor from Hong Kong to Paris is out there. They're waiting to see if you're a flash in the pan or a permanent son. And what do you think, Soren? I asked, stepping toward him. He reached out, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw. I think you've already won. The clothes are just the victory lap. The lights dimmed, and the pulse of a deep, cinematic bass began to thrum through the floorboards, one by one. The models stepped onto the glass. The collection, the Phoenix Audit, was a masterpiece of transitions, starting with somber, structured grays and exploding into vibrant, defiant crimsons and golds. It told the story of a woman who had been burned to ash and chose to return as the flame. As the finale approached, my phone, sitting on the vanity, began to vibrate incessantly. It was Assistant Chen. I picked it up, a sense of dread pooling in my stomach. Miss Yi, we have a problem. Chen's voice was strained. Someone has bypassed the firewall for the digital backdrop. They're uploading a private file to the main projector. I looked toward the stage. The giant LED screen that was supposed to show the Aurelia logo suddenly flickered. A grainy, low-quality video began to play. It was me, not the powerful CEO, but the broken woman from the rose garden. Sobbing in the mud of the abandoned altar, it was followed by a series of staged, scandalous photos, me entering Soren's car, the contract on the desk in the midnight office, all edited to look like I had seduced Soren to orchestrate a corporate takeover. The audience gasped. The sophisticated music was drowned out by the murmur of 1,000 judgmental whispers. He didn't do it from prison, I whispered, my eyes fixed on the screen. Ji Yang had a dead man's switch. He prepared this leak months ago. Soren's face was a mask of cold fury. I'll have the power cut. We can end the show now. No, I said, grabbing his arm. My mind was racing, the old fear trying to claw its way back. But the new Yi Ran pushed it down. If we cut the power, we admit it's a scandal. If we let it play, it's a narrative. I grabbed a wireless microphone from the tech table. Without waiting for the models to finish, I walked out onto the glass runway. The wind caught my jacket, billowing it out like a cape. The giant screen behind me was still playing the video of my lowest moment. My face streaked with tears and betrayal. I stood at the very edge of the glass, looking down at the front row. "Look at that woman on the screen," I said, my voice projected clearly over the speakers. Steady and resonant, the murmuring stopped. She was betrayed by the man she trusted. She was left with nothing but a torn dress and a shattered reputation. Many of you in this room watched that live stream with a sense of entertainment. You expected her to disappear. You expected her to stay broken. I gestured to the screen as it showed the photo of the marriage contract. That contract wasn't a seduction, it was a declaration of war. It was the moment I realized that in a world that wants to consume you, you must become the one who sets the price. I turned my back to the audience and looked up at the giant image of my sobbing self. I am not ashamed of that girl. She is the reason I am standing here tonight. Ji Yang leaked these photos to ruin me, to remind me of my shame, but he forgot one thing. You cannot shame a woman who has already walked through hell and come out the other side owning the fire. I looked back at the crowd, my eyes finding the cameras. This collection is for her, and for every one of you who has been told your scars are something to hide. At Aurelia, we don't hide the scars. We weave them into the gold. The silence lasted for 3 heartbeats. Then, it started, a slow, rhythmic clapping from the center of the front row. It was Madame Lu, Soren's formidable mother, standing up with a look of fierce approval. Then the investors followed, then the critics. The standing ovation was deafening, a roar of sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the tower. The scandal hadn't ruined the launch, it had humanized the brand. We weren't just selling clothes. We were selling the story of the ultimate comeback. Backstage, after the final bow, the room was flooded with people trying to get a piece of the new queen of fashion. But I looked past them all to where Soren was standing by the exit. He wasn't clapping. He was just watching me with a look I had never seen before, a look of total, unadulterated respect. I fought my way through the crowd to reach him. "We did it," I breathed. "You did it," he corrected, his voice low and private amidst the noise. "The contract is fulfilled, Ran, your debt is paid, your name is cleared, and your company is the most talked about brand in the world. You don't need the auntie title anymore." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, leather folder. It was our marriage contract. Without a word, he handed it to me. "You're free. I've already had the annulment papers drawn up. You can walk away tonight with everything we built, and I won't stand in your way." I looked at the contract. The paper that had been my lifeline and my cage. The wind from the rooftop ruffled the edges. This was the moment of self-awakening the world talked about. I could be the independent empress, beholden to no one. "Is that what you want, Soren?" I asked. "I want you to have the choice you weren't given at the altar," he said, his grey eyes unreadable. I looked at the contract, then at the man who had stood in the shadows so I could find the light. I didn't tear the paper. I folded it and tucked it back into his pocket. "I've spent my whole life being told what I need," I said, my hand lingering on his chest. "Today, for the first time, I'm deciding what I want, and I'm not finished with you yet, Mr. Lu." The corners of his mouth twitched, a rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. "The board meeting is at 8 tomorrow morning, Mrs. Lu. Don't be late." As the city lights twinkled below us, I realized the revenge was over. The growth was complete. Now, the only thing left was the empire. The iron gates of the city's central detention center were a grim, rusted gray, a stark contrast to the shimmering glass of the Lu Tower I had left an hour ago. I was here for one last errand of the soul. I wasn't wearing the obsidian gown or the sapphire choker. I was in a simple, perfectly tailored white suit, the color of a clean slate. The visitation room was cold, smelling of bleach and despair. I sat behind the reinforced glass, waiting. When the door opened, a man in an orange jumpsuit was led in by 2 guards. It took me a moment to recognize him. Ji Yang had lost the light in his eyes, his hair was thinning, and his skin had the sallow, translucent look of someone who had forgotten what the sun felt like. He sat down, his hands trembling as he reached for the intercom phone. I picked up mine. You look terrible, G, I said, my voice devoid of both malice and pity. It was simply a statement of fact. Ran. He choked out my name. His voice cracking. I knew you'd come. You still care, don't you? You wouldn't be here if you didn't still feel something. I looked at him, searching my heart for a spark of the old love, or even the hot coal of the old rage. I found nothing, just a vast, quiet emptiness. I'm here because I realized I never gave you a wedding gift. Gee, you gave me so many, the live stream, the check, the leak at my fashion show. It's only fair I return the favor. I slid a small, glossy envelope into the transfer slot. A guard checked it and handed it to him. Ji Yang opened it with fumbling fingers. Inside was a single Polaroid photo and a legal document. The photo was of the new Aurelia flagship store in Paris, standing where his favorite luxury club used to be. The legal document was a notice of total asset liquidation. I bought the last of your debt from the secondary market this morning. I said calmly, every penny you owe to the banks, the private lenders, and the Lu Group. I own it all now. You won't be coming out to a world where you can hide. You'll be coming out to a world where you are my permanent debtor. Ji Yang's face crumpled. Why, you've won. You have Soren. You have the company. Why keep crushing me? Because you didn't just try to steal my money. Ji, you tried to steal my belief in myself, I said, leaning closer to the glass. I want you to live a long, healthy life. I want you to wake up every morning in that cell and remember that the woman you thought was a placeholder is the one who signs the checks for the guards who watch you sleep. I hung up the phone before he could respond. I didn't look back as the guards dragged him away, his pathetic pleas echoing off the concrete walls. My next stop was a lower security facility across town. Lin Xia was waiting in the common room. She had lost the White Lotus Act, her hair was greasy, and she was into a fight with another inmate over a plastic tray. When she saw me, she didn't cry. She lunged at the glass, her face contorted in a mask of pure, ugly envy. You think you're better than me, she screamed, her voice muffled by the partition. You just got lucky. You just found a bigger man to hide behind. I didn't even pick up the phone for her. I simply held up a small mirror I had brought in my purse. I pressed it against the glass, forcing her to look at her own reflection, the bitterness, the rot of her own making. I held it there until she stopped screaming and started to shake. Then, I tucked the mirror back in my bag and walked away. The air outside the prison felt sweet and expansive. I drove back to the city. Toward the private helipad atop the Lu Tower, the sun was setting, painting the sky in violent shades of violet and gold, the colors of royalty and transition. Soren was there, standing by the idling helicopter. The wind whipped his dark hair, and for the first time, he didn't look like a statue. He looked like a man waiting for his equal. Is the past settled? He asked as I approached. Buried, I replied, and I've made sure the soil is salted. They won't grow back. Soren reached out. Taking my hand, he didn't pull me toward the helicopter, he just held me there, at the edge of the world we had built together. The board approved the merger this afternoon. They've named us co-chairs. Their auntie and their uncle are officially the monarchs of the Luji Empire. I smiled, looking out at the city lights beginning to flicker to life below us. I don't care about the titles, Soren, I care about the view. And how is the view from the top? It's a bit lonely, I admitted, turning to face him, but I think I can get used to it, as long as the person standing next to me knows exactly how hard the climb was. Soren leaned down, his forehead resting against mine. The coldness that had defined him for a decade had finally melted into something steady, something indestructible. I'm not going anywhere, Ran. The contract might be gone, but the partnership, that's just beginning. He kissed me then, not a tactical display for the cameras, not a seal on a business deal, but a slow, deep promise of a future built on truth. As we boarded the helicopter and rose into the darkening sky, I looked down at the city. Somewhere down there, in the shadows, were the ruins of the woman I used to be. But up here, in the cold, clear air, I was finally whole. I was Yi Ran, I was a Lu. But more importantly, I was my own. The empire was ours, the night was young, and the story was finally, beautifully, mine to write.